Now, Mr. President, you've just come directly now from a meeting with Barack Obama. Can you tell us a little bit about what you discussed?
Я расскажу, но не все.
I will tell you, but not everything.
У нас хорошие отношения.
We have good relations with President Obama
Нашло свое воплощение
that was
в целом ряде
reflected in the whole range of the breakthrough decisions of the recent years, and that meeting was a good one. We discussed a lot of questions. We discussed the current economic situation, spoke about the APEC Summit, spoke about the Russian WTO joining. I thank President Obama that he's the first American president who put the most energetic efforts to it. If he did it before, earlier, then Russia would already be in the WTO, and we would not have the situation when Russia, the major economy that enters the whole range of organizations, is not a member of WTO. We discussed regional problems, spoke about Afghanistan, Iran, and we discussed some other things that I cannot share with you.
Then I won't probe you. I was about to. As you mentioned the WTO, I mean, in recent days, you've overcome a number of hurdles towards accession to the WTO. Is it now a done deal? And what does it mean for Russia? I mean, after all, we saw that when China joined the WTO, it entered a new phase of its economic development. I mean, can we expect something similar with Russia?
Я тоже надеюсь, что
I hope that it will be a very good change for the Russian economy, despite the fact that we were getting ready for a long time and a whole range of Russian companies face certain difficulties and concerns, but the policy is still the same. We believe that WTO accession of Russia is ripe. We are ready for it. And we are glad that as a result of joint efforts, I hope we would be able in the nearest future to complete this process. As for the consequences to the Russian economy, they're evident. Russian economy, in that sense, would become closer to the standards of WTO and to the standards of international trade that really is important for all countries and for the whole WTO system. On the other hand, I believe that would improve the competitiveness of Russian companies. That is also important for them. That is why I'm glad that it's almost happened. I hope that in the nearest few weeks we will not see any surprises, and Russia finally will join the club of states in the WTO, and the experts from Russia will have boring talks how to finish the Doha round of talks.
The Russian economy is sometimes criticized, if that's the right word, or characterized as being too resource dependent. I mean, will accession to the WTO, through the kind of competition that is bound to bring, will that cause innovation, more innovation in Russia? What real hopes do you have for Russia to become a different kind of modern economy, assuming that you accept that characterization in the first place?
I believe that WTO accession, I would say that one of the conditions to diversify the Russian economy. Russia is a rich country, rich in energy resources, natural resources. It's very good because it allows Russia to develop, and we cannot underestimate our potential. On the other hand, Russia cannot be a country where there is only one part, and we should not base only on natural resources and energy resources. We should develop other areas of our economy, and in that sense, WTO would favor the development of our economy and diversification of our companies. But the main focus should be made on ourselves and not on the membership in international organizations. Because in order to change the situation in the economy could be implemented only by Russian companies. At the same time, we count that the new economy will be born as a result of joint investment of Russian businessmen and the coming of important high-tech investment from other countries. I'm optimistic about it. I'm sure that new creative economy will take its dignified place in Russian economy, despite of the fact that for a long time will be one of the main suppliers of raw materials and energy resources at the world market.
Now, as you've mentioned, you're entering a rules-based system, and I think it's fair to say that some foreign businesses don't always associate Russia with sticking by the rules. I mean, first of all, is that a fair criticism by those companies? And if it is that now going to change?
It's a fair criticism. I would say more. In other countries, they not always obey by the rules, and if they are not abided by, usually the legal system is in operation, and probably that is the main thing that we should pay attention. The rules are often violated in the most developed countries with good traditions. The most important thing that if there is a violation, one can protect its interests. And in that issue, we will have to go through some development. Our judicial system is in operation. It is under the development, and it's not as developed as in other countries. And during the recent years, I was trying to pay more attention to the development of the legal system, the judicial system, by creating new institutions that could be used for that purposes.
Now, what do you think of the TPP arrangement? I mean, it could look like as soon as you join one club, America immediately sets up another club to which you're not invited. Do you resent that there's this new body that's being set up alongside the body that you're just joining?
As for this Trans-Pacific Partnership, I don't understand what will be the result of this club. When it starts to operate, then we could view what is it like. So far, it's a project. It's kind of interesting project, undoubtedly. Well, we'll wait and see what it will be like.
Thank you. You're in APEC, obviously. Here you are at the conference. You're hosting it next year. The perception is that you look very much to Europe. And certainly if you look at your trading patterns, that would support that view. You trade much, much more with Europe than you do with Asia. I guess my question is, aren't you betting on the wrong horse? I mean, isn't this where the action is? And there you are looking at Europe. Shouldn't you be looking more to Asia?
Well, we're trying to look in every direction. Russia is located both in Europe and in Asia, so we give attention to the both parts of the world. Of course, Europe and Eurozone European markets survive difficult times. Lots remains to be done to stabilize the situation. The recent G20 summit was dedicated to the matter. We discussed the current situation on the European market, but I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the attention of the whole world is now drawn to the European crisis, and unlikely we will be able to resolve European problems in isolation of the global problems. America discussed it, Australia discussed it, Asia Pacific states discussed them. So did Russia. So for us, obviously, it's very important to ensure balanced development of Russia, to make sure that we develop along all lines. At the moment, the volume of our trade with EU countries equals $250 billion, which is a lot. However, the potential of Asia-Pacific region and markets of this part of the globe is no lesser. We have great volume of trade of China, India, many other countries. Maybe, unfortunately, the volume of our bilateral trade with the US is limited, and we raised this matter with President Obama. It's increased to $30 billion, and we see potential for further growth. We try to develop in all directions, and we believe that it is only through balanced, harmonized growth we can reach our goals, and we count that the next APEC Summit in 2012 in Vladivostok will help to enforce the position of the Russian Federation in Asia markets. Moreover, our regions that are in the Far East are less developed than those that are located in the Central European part of Russia, and hosting the summit will give impetus to their development, bringing new contracts and new investments.
I mean, you raise an interesting point. I mean, if you look at Siberia, some of the towns on the border with China, you'd expect them to be booming, but they're not. You know, what more can be done to both increase trade generally with Asia, but also to exploit or to ride what is obviously, you know, the world's fastest growing biggest economy in the world at the moment?
Well, we need to create favorable conditions for everyone to work. I believe that investments is a mutual process. On the one hand, one party should be open to accommodate investments, create mechanisms to protect them. But on the other hand, it's about the investors' desire to invest. Oftentimes, investors avoid countries where the investment climate is favorable. But on the other hand, they go to countries where there are problems with investment climate. So there is no direct correlation, but generally investments come to places where they are welcome. So our goal is to make sure that in Russia, in this particular region, to create such investment climate.
What about specifically the gas pipeline, gas and oil pipeline that we've heard a lot about for many, many years? I was looking at some numbers, and if I'm not mistaken, I think only 2% of your fossil fuel sales go to China. One would expect, given this is a kind of a hungry beast that needs more energy, and you have that in abundance, you know, it's hard to understand what's holding this up.
Значит, я не знаю насчет 2%.
Well, I'm not sure about 2%. No, I don't have such data, but apparently Chinese market is ready to accommodate much more energy. And we are agreeing upon the matter with Chinese partners. There are two projects, gas supply, for instance, pipeline gas, as we call it, to Chinese People's Republic. There are two routes, western route and eastern route. Now, at the moment, we are in the process of negotiations with Chinese partners, discussing conditions of gas supply. As soon as we have completed negotiations, and the main question is always the same, it's the price, then, you know, all barriers will be lifted and the volume of gas supply will be increased substantially. I believe that potential for pipeline gas supply to China is comparable to the volumes of our supplies to the European part of the continent, meaning Western Europe countries.
Another kind of sticking point seems to be the Southern Kurils, what the Japanese call the Northern Territories, the four disputed islands. Is there any prospect of solving that problem, which would, after all, well, many people say that it would unlock a kind of wave of Japanese investment potentially into Siberia, into that region?
Well, we're still waiting for Japanese investments. Today I had a meeting with the newly appointed Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Noda. We spoke about investments. I believe it's a perfectly normal process. Indeed, there is one problem that burdens our relations, lack of so-called peaceful treaty and the territorial issue. Our position is very simple. It goes as follows. We shouldn't make a drama over the matter, continue calmly discussing it. Our positions do diverge on the matter. We believe that the existing situation reflects the existing status quo and the outcomes of the World War II. Naturally, Russian Federation believes that those treacheries are Russian treacheries. This is why the Russian authorities and Russian leaders, president and others, visit the treacheries. We don't mind Japanese investments. We would welcome them. We would welcome Japanese experts to come and work there so that we could operate and manage those islands together. This would be a normal process. I believe that economy should go first and politics should follow suit. This is a correct approach in general in life, because it's economics that defines our life, and politics, makes it worse oftentimes.
The President has very kindly agreed to take some questions from the floor. So I'm going to spring this on you. Whoever would like to ask a question, could they identify themselves? I think there are some microphones, hopefully. I may use my privilege and take back the questions at some point, but who would like to ask a question? There's one over there. Microphone 6, I think that is.
Добрый день. Наверное, буду говорить по-русски.
Good day. I'll ask my question in Russian.
Could you please identify yourself?
Mariana Белинская. We are from Youth Voices of Future. И для меня большая честь задать вопрос.
It's a great honor for me to ask my question, and it goes as follows. Do you think it will be possible to reach equal level of economic development of Russia in the East and in the West, make sure that all regions are as developed as Moscow, and create next center of development in Vladivostok or in Primorsk region generally? Well, had I had any doubts about that, I would not be head of state. The potential is huge in the Far East, in Siberia. Since ancient times, when one of the Tsars said that Russia will go stronger through Siberia, nothing has changed since. We're still developing largely due to Far East and Siberian resources. It is not always reflected by the living standards of people out there, but they have the good conditions to make sure that life in Far East of Vladivostok be the same as in Moscow and St. Petersburg. What it takes is infrastructure and social environment, imposing good living standards. Prior to coming here, I was in Khabarovsk. It's a well-developed city. And all those that come to Khabarovsk understand that, on the one hand, it's a Far Eastern city, but on the other hand, it's a city with strong European traditions. We even hosted Russia EU Summit in Khabarovsk, and our European Union partners were amazed to see how far east Europe stretches. So solutions can be found to all issues. What it takes are investment, improvement of living standards, and then life in those regions will be no different from life in the capital cities. It is normal.
Can I just follow up on that? I mean, does Russia see its identity as very strongly European? I mean, after all, when it was the Soviet Union, there were many states that were in Asia. You still have a big chunk of land that pokes out in this direction. I mean, do you still predominantly see yourself as a European nation?
Это такой вопрос, на который опасно давать однозначный ответ.
It's a question dangerous to answer, bluntly such questions, because any blunt response would be interpreted. On the one hand, in terms of the culture that dominates in our country, Russia is obviously a European country that has been shaped as part of Europe, and although it stretches all the way from Kaliningrad to the Far East, it is still a country with European traditions. On the other hand, we are part of Asia-Pacific region. Moreover, we are creating an association, integration union with Kazakhstan and Belarus, which is called Customs Union. In the future, we are planning on changing the name for the Eurasian Community, making a direct reference to Asia. So we perceive ourselves to be part of both cultures, and that's just normal.
I may ask you about the Eurasian Community a little bit later if there's time, but I think there was another question over here, microphone 4.
尊敬的俄罗斯总统梅德韦杰夫先生，我是来自中华人民共和国。
Respected President, and I come from Beijing, China, and I think that the territory issues with Japan, you said that the economy first and the politics second, and I think this is a very good idea. Economic is easy to follow. Sometimes the political will make things even worse. And China may have some conflicts with another country. Will Russia become the mediator to reconcile the conflictions between China and the other country?
Это вопрос или это констатация?
Is that a question or a statement?
Will he be prepared to mediate in some future unknown crisis?
Да мы только и делаем, что выступаем в
All we do is mediate. I mediate everywhere. It takes up so much of my time that sometimes I don't have any time to deal with domestic issues. I'm a professional mediator.
Спасибо.
We have a question down here, I think. I can't remember what number it was. Number 5.
Respected President of Russia, you are very, you have the characterisms, and we support you very much. I'm from Far East. I'm Jiang Xipei. I have 2 questions for you this afternoon. Everybody is concerned about next year's election in Russia. Are you going to participate in the election? And the second question is the Chinese company and the Russian company discussed over 10 years about the gas and natural gas and oils shipping to China. But without your consent, this agreement will not be effective. And we are interested in know when are you going to sign this agreement? Thank you.
Когда? Насчет выборов. У меня было такое ощущение, что мы вроде...
Well, I had a feeling we told you about our plans. I told you about my plans. But if I need to repeat it, yes, I am going to run. A campaign started, elections to the State Duma, the lower chamber of our parliament. So I can't stand to stay too long even here. The campaign will end on December 4th. Yours truly is head of one of the party lists that takes part in State Duma elections. It is called United Russia. So if all goes well, if United Russia is successful at elections, and should our candidate win the presidential race, then I'm planning to work in government. I'm probably telling you something new, something no one ever heard before. Well, then you can consider that I made this breakthrough statement here in Honolulu. But as regards oil and gas supply, we're supplying oil to the People's Republic of China already, actively. We have good ties and contracts for the long run. Talking about gas supply, like I just said, we are now completing negotiations. We have present here Chairman of the Board of Gazprom, Mr. Miller, who's nodding. But like one of our characters of literature said, an agreement is subject to non-opposition by both parties. So we have 2 positions of us and of the Chinese friends. We need to bring them as close as possible. There is one issue, the price. We already agreed on everything. But even on price, we're very close to reaching final agreement. So in the nearest future, in the short term, we will agree and start implementing this major project. Every time we meet Chinese authorities, we raise this question. When I last met President Hu Jintao, we also discussed this question.
I'd heard something about that domestic arrangement. Can I just end with a couple of questions? First of all, I think I do need to ask you about the European crisis. I mean, how grave do you think this is? How will it play out? Is this the end of the euro? Is it the end of the eurozone? Are we being overdramatic?
Ну, я напомню, моя фамилия Медведев.
Well, I'll remind you, my name is Medvedev, not Merkel, not Sarkozy. They are probably, proper people to ask this question. Or maybe, thank God I'm not Merkel or Sarkozy. Because it's so much more difficult for them now.
Конечно, ситуация непростая.
Well, the situation is obviously very difficult. That said, I have my own feeling. And that is, had there been no euro as a global reserve currency, then in 2008-9, it would have been so much more difficult for us and for the US dollar to survive. So the fact that euro exists as global reserve currency helps the entire financial system to exist. My second point is that euro services very different countries, and that weakens the arrangement. That currency was created to serve countries with very different economies. But there is nothing we can do about it now. The situation exists as it is, and now we need to find a solution. So should there be a process of European integration 2.0 be launched, it might undermine the idea of euro itself. So should the number of Eurozone member states be reduced, it will not necessarily mean greater sustainability of euro. But I believe that the current rate that had been agreed upon by the European Union authorities, even the difficult decisions on Greece's economy, is the correct way of resolving this difficult task. But let us wait and see. We're great supporters of euro and economies that are linked with euros, because we have great gold and currency reserves euro-denominated. Almost half of our reserves are in euros. So we're following the faith of euro very closely. So do China and other countries.
Absolutely. In the short time we have remaining, you will be hosting APEC next year in Vladivostok. This becomes a Russian-led event. And what is your agenda for next year? How will you carry this project forward?
We are proud that in 2012 Russia hosts the APEC Summit. We are getting ready for it. We have a very significant number of major projects implemented in Vladivostok. The leadership of Primorsky region is present here to learn lessons of our American friends to conduct this summit at a very good level. As for the agenda, it will comprise many elements. It will consist of the issues that we discuss today, because the problems that are present in the economy today will still be the same, and the problems that the Asia-Pacific region faces will, some of them, stay the same. Energy cooperation, or trade, or logistics possibilities, or food security. By the way, all these topics will be discussed. As the energy issues, that is quite natural for Russia. We believe that all those topics will complement each other, and that will be the specific character of Vladivostok Summit. And I invite everybody present here in Honolulu to APEC Summit to our country in the city of Vladivostok. I'm sure that by that time we would be able to solve a whole range of problems, but at the same time we'll still have some issues to discuss in the frameworks of the Business Council in the APEC. I'm sure you will like it. I cannot promise that we'll have the same weather as in Hawaii, but I promise to President Obama that there will be similar conditions because it's a good season for the Primorsky region. So please do come. We'll be very glad to see all of you.
So pack your snow boots. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for an excellent session.
See you.